بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today we are going to discuss conditions of a contract. So this is the series of theory of contract. Of course, we talked about the three pillars of a contract. Then we talked about the purpose and effect of a contract, right? So now we are going to talk about the conditions, shurut, right? In Arabic, it is called shurut, or mostly the name by the name of sharat. So these are the conditions of a contract. So someone is fulfilling the contract with three pillars. So all of them already fulfilled, right? Then someone is actually selling or buying with the prohibited intention. So what will happen to that person? So we discussed that in our last class, with regard to the purpose and effect. So we discussed that with regard to the purpose and effect. We also talked about if everything is fulfilled, all three pillars. If someone is actually uh, compelling someone, forcing someone to sell something, buy something, then what will happen? So we discussed all those things. So now we are going to the next part of the contract, because we actually covering the entire thing, whatever related to the contract. That is what actually the purpose of this class. So we're going to talk about the conditions. So now all three pillars are completed, yeah, and then your purpose is also good. So you can clearly see the purpose and also the effect. Yeah, so someone is selling something. Let's say someone is selling an iPhone, and that person fulfilled all three pillars, and he is selling, and and someone is buying that from someone with the good intention to buy. So the subject matter is very good, I mean, which is iPhone, which is new, brand new and all. So now everything is there. So in order to validate the contract, everything is there. But can I make a condition? Now the question comes, can I make a condition in this contract? For example, I say, um, I will sell this iPhone to you. All right. By the way, everything is completed. Three pillars are there. The purpose and effect is completed. The intention is already there. The expression is okay. The subject matter is clear, right? The parties are good. Both of them are adults. So now someone say, can I make a condition in this? So, for example, I want to sell this phone. I can sell this iPhone to you, but there is a condition. What is it? The condition is you must sell something that I like from you. Uh, so I will be able to only sell this iPhone. Um, then he make a conditions which is actually sometimes it's not related, but he is having in something in his mind. Maybe he is willing to sell this iPhone so that he actually can get some other benefits other than money. Of course, the money is already there, but other than some other benefits, maybe to introduce to someone, or maybe getting some applications from some places, right? Maybe getting a ride. He said that, okay, I'm ready to sell this iPhone, but you should send me back to my place, or you should pay me the travel, whatever the money that you are supposed to pay for traveling. So these are the additional conditions. Can I make or not? So this is the question here. All right. So to answer this, I think to know the answer, we have to go through the entire class. So we have to now we are going to learn what kind of conditions, because I cannot say that all kind of I cannot say all kind of conditions are wrong. There are some conditions are accepted. Okay, there are some conditions are not accepted, so you cannot say clearly you cannot make condition. There are few conditions are there which are related to what we are buying and selling. So now there is only one way to find out what kind of conditions accepted, what kind of condition is not accepted. So I think we need to go through inside the class. So let me present to you the two types of conditions. Overall, there are two types of conditions. So let me also make sure that you relate yourself to the slide. That is the most important thing. If you don't relate what we are talking, then it will be like difficult to understand what we are doing here. So now overall, there are only two types of condition. The first conditions are imposed by law. What I mean by law is actually Sharia. Sharia itself is imposing some sort of conditions, right? So you if you just go back to the three pillars and also the purpose and effect that we earlier we studied. If you go back to those classes, then I think you can clearly see there are a couple of conditions Sharia itself, the law itself bringing. All right, we will be seeing what are those. There are around four types of conditions that Sharia is imposing. All right, so we will be discussing one by one. The other one is conditions stipulated by the parties. All right, so now you see conditions also can be divided into two types. Yeah, one is the conditions which already there in your contract. Remember, when I say conditions imposed by law, it is not something that Sharia suddenly coming to you and asking you some and giving you some conditions. Ustaz is coming suddenly asking you and he is giving you some conditions. It's not like that. When I say imposed by Sharia, imposed by law, which means it's already there. We didn't see, but it's already there. So when I give you more examples, I think you will understand. So that's number one. Number two is what? Conditions stipulated by the parties. So this is something I guess you will easily understand when I say this, because these are the conditions other than the contract. We are making it ourselves. We are actually we are making it ourselves. Whatever that unnecessarily we make the conditions, like just now I told you, if I sell you the iPhone, you should do this, you should do that. You understand? There are so many contract that we are actually everybody is making it. So you should do this, you should sell your house. If I have to buy the house from you, you should buy from me this. These are the things are there. If I have to pay the tuition fee, you have to work for this. These are the conditions already there. People are always do, always, even though we are doing the online selling and buying, or we go to the shop, whether we sometimes we talk to the people in the shop, sometimes we don't talk to them, we just go there and then take the items and come to the counter, and then we just come away with a plastic bag and all. But still there are also some conditions already stipulated by the parties. Most of the time we don't see it. So this kind of class is actually giving you the black and white of those kind of contract, so that you will clearly see those things. You evaluate yourself what kind of conditions that we are going through. That knowledge will help you to understand more on Sharia perspective of contract, right? So that's the reason why you have registered these classes. It is so I think I just give you these two broad types of conditions. One is imposed by Sharia, all right. The other one is imposed by you and me, right? The human, you and me, the additional thing that we do. So let's see which one is valid, which one, I mean, both of them are definitely both of them are valid, but there are few scenarios which are not valid, which is invalid. So we're gonna see it properly one by one. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let me tell you what exactly condition means. Condition means those attributes which, if are absent, the contract will not come into existence. So this is what the condition, the meaning, the definition of the condition. Those attributes, those characters, whatever the thing, which are, if it is absent, if it is not there, the contract cannot be concluded. This is what we call the condition. All right. So now, as I gave you two types of main divisions in the condition. First one is asharatu shara'i. Asharatu ash-shara'i, or you can say al-ashratu. No, ashurutu shara'iyya. The other one is ashartul ja'li. All right. The first one is shara'i, means without which a contract cannot be realized. For instance, conditions related to the capacity of the parties. For example, yeah, this is the example. There is no way that you can conclude a contract without the active legal capacity, right? You see, we already talked about it in the three pillars, right? So in order to validate any contract, you and me, we, but most of us, I mean, both of us should be adult, right? I cannot do the contract with minor. I cannot do the contract with with insane person, right? So that these are the things. If I do that, the contract will be invalid, right? So now, in order to make it valid, I should find the person who is also adult, who is not insane, who is not prodigals. So these are the conditions are there, right? So these conditions, who is bringing it? We, not human being is not bringing these conditions. These conditions are already there in Sharia. All right. For example, in order to make a contract, there should be subject matter. Right, that's pillar number 3. So if there is no subject matter, then there won't be any contract. But the question comes now, whether that subject matter is something should be deliverable on the moment or can be delivered later. So these are the additional informations which we are going to discuss after this. All right, but I'm just giving you an idea. If any one of the pillar is not there, then according to Sharia, contract cannot be concluded. So it's a condition. All right. Okay. Conditions that may be put by parties. Ashartul ja'li, in order to achieve certain specific objectives. For example, if the borrower travel, then I will pay him. You see that these are the conditions as already there. I'm not saying this is wrong. These are the conditions already there. Let's say you are making a contract. Remember, when I say contract, not necessarily it has to be only sale. Remember, when I say contract, it's the entire thing that human being are dealing with, right? Remember, contract does not doesn't refer to only the sale. Like for example, buying and selling is a contract. It is not only a contract. It is one of the contract. So now you have a contract of wakala, contract of kafala, contract of i'ara, ijara, for example renting, leasing is one of the contract. Yes, the same thing kafala, right? Guarantor, giving guarantor, becoming the guarantor, right? For example, okay, he can actually borrow some money from you, and if he is not able to pay, then I will be paying. It's a kind of guarantor. You become the kafil for him, right? So this is also called contract. Remember I told you, in fact marriage also one of the contract, right? So you should see, when I tell you contract, there are so many varieties of contract. I know if someone is still not clear, don't worry, because the next subject is going to be the classification of contract. So now we are going to classify what are the contract, what are the types of the contract, what are the examples. So I will be giving you in the next slide, next class, probably next to next class, or maybe next class. Yeah. All right. So now you already understand what are the conditions that may be. I mean, there is a second main division. The second one is the ashartul ja'li, which is the conditions that may be put by the parties. All right. Now, so today I think this is what overall the content of the class. So today probably let me just talk about only these four divisions of four types of the first conditions. All right. The first main division of the condition is the condition imposed by Sharia. All right. Under these conditions imposed by Sharia, you have four types of conditions. So which means that you will be listening from me four types of different kind of examples you are going to learn from this class. So now you have four types of conditions. We call it shurutul iniqad, shurutul siha, shurutul nifaz, shurutul luzum. All right, so if I have to translate, these are the conditions for conclusion, conditions for the validity, conditions for the execution, condition for a contract to be binding. Okay, now maybe if I just give you these four like this, sometimes it will be, very difficult for you to understand. Instead, what I do, let me just give you a relation to all these four. Yeah, like last time we talked about the divisions in the legal capacity, right? We talked about the complete, incomplete, active, and non-active legal capacities, right? So I was giving you some examples, right? So now the same way, in order to understand and also make it easy for us, just remember all these four is actually interrelated. Look at number one, which is actually shurutul iniqad, conditions for concluding the contract, is the basic thing that you should have in order to make a contract. Then you have the validity of the contract. You have the basic thing, but you should validate that thing in order to go further. So that is what we call shurutu siha, validity of the contract. So once it is validated, the next step is execution, right? So you start a contract, and then you validate a contract, then you execute the contract. All right, then the last one is the binding the contract. After all you finish, you see now, after all you finish, you have this binding and non-binding things. Okay, no problem. When I give you the example, I think it will be easy for you to understand. All right, so just stay with me. I will be describing to you all these one by one. Okay, so now you see, uh, okay, this is the first one. This is the first one. Conditions for concluding the contract. Remember, all these four conditions that I'm talking to you, this is imposed by Sharia. This is not imposed by you and me. All right. The one we can impose you and me, that one, inshallah, we will be talking about it in the next class or maybe after this. All right. Okay. The first one is what? Shurutul iniqad. These conditions are subdivided into two. The first one is iniqad, and under the shurutul iniqad you have two subdivision. The first one is a general condition, the other one is a specific condition. So look, all these general conditions and specific conditions still comes under Sharia stipulated conditions. All right. Okay. General conditions is what I told you last time. In order to conclude a contract, you should be fulfilling how many pillars? Three pillars, right? If any one of the pillar is not there, then the contract cannot be concluded. That's why it is called shurutul iniqad. So that's a general condition. All right, that's the first one. Example: conditions for offer acceptance and condition with regard to the capacity. Capacity means the party, and the subject matter. Subject matter is the thing that you are, what you are selling. Then there is another subdivision to this condition. I mean the condition of shurutul iniqad, which means specific condition that is necessary for certain contract. For example, the physical transfer of a property is a condition in contracts of gift, borrowing, deposit, loan, and mortgage. See, the contract, I told you, right? There is no single thing in contracts. Contracts always in plural. There are so many things. Some of the examples are, there are gift is also a kind of contract, borrowing also a kind of contract, deposit, loan, mortgage, all these kinds of contract, right? In the absence of this condition, the contract cannot be concluded. See, for example, physical transfer is a condition, right, which comes under specific condition, which comes under the first condition of Sharia, which is shurutul iniqad. But this physical transfer not necessary for all kind of contract. That's the reason why they said, for example, the physical transfer of a property is a condition in contracts of blah blah blah. Right? Okay, for example, you and me buying and selling a land, right? So let's say I bought a land from you. Do you think you will be able to give me transferring physically? I mean, you are not going to transfer to me, like you are not going to carry and give it to me, right? If I have to buy a house, you are not actually going to give me, physical transfer. You are not going to transfer to me like physically taking and giving it. But of course, it is also called a physical transfer, whether it is the house or the land. But what I mean here is you don't have to be there in order to see the property. I mean, in order to hand over the property. For example, you buy an iPhone. Yes, the physical transfer is important, right? So now he has to take it and then he has to give it while you are doing the contract, while you are doing that selling and buying, right? What if you buy from me insurance, right? Is there any physical transfer of insurance? What if you buy from me a copyright? Isn't it? What if you buy from me a video or movie or audio or MP3, whatever it is? Yeah, today we are paying applications, right? We pay app, we buy from Google Play Store or App Store of Apple. We are buying so many apps. Is there any physical transfer? There is no physical transfer. It's a virtual transfer, right? So that's the reason I said specific conditions means there are some contract need physical transfer, but some of them doesn't need. So those contract which need physical transfer, you have to keep, you have to remember that this condition could be one of the condition of a contract, right? Likewise, the presence of two witnesses in the contract of marriage. Anybody is going to get married, there should be shahidan. There should be two witnesses. So that two witnesses, they should be there physically, right? If there is no two witnesses are there while you are doing the khutbah, while the khatib, the imam is doing the khutbah, these two witnesses must be there. Otherwise, the nikah is not valid. Okay, that's the first one. It comes under what? Under Sharia imposed conditions. The second one is what? Shurutu siha. All right. Now, just remember, as I told you, there is always a connection between number one, number two, number three, number four, right? I'm going to give you four things, right? So now the first one, just imagine that there is all the pillars are there. All right, all three pillars are there, so that condition is fulfilled. Now you go to the second condition, which is validity of the contract, shurutu sihha. These are those conditions which if not present would make a contract void. For example, a contract should be free from elements of uncertainty and ignorance, such as ignorance about the price or the type of currency, right? Similarly, a contract entered into by duress or contract involving fraud or not valid. Selling a car or a house on the conditions that the purchaser should rent or resell it to the seller is void. See, now you look all these examples. In these examples, you always see that all three pillars are there. Am I right? Look at it. All three pillars are there. So the first condition is already there. In this second type of condition, there is additionally, there are some problems. What are they? You already have the subject matter. You already have something that you are selling, but you don't know exactly what is it. There is something that he brought it on the table. He put it. He said, "I want to sell you this." So the subject matter is there. So according to three pillars, the third pillar is fulfilled. But the problem is we don't know what is it exactly. Uncertainty, ignorance. What is inside the box? He said, "I want to sell something to you, whatever inside the box." But what is inside the box? It is still unknown. Uh, Now, according to three pillars are there, but still the condition, the contract, it is not valid because you don't know what exactly inside. It is called elements of uncertainty and ignorance. You don't know how much the price exactly, what type of currency that you are going to use it, right? Okay, now another example I can give you. You already know what exactly in the box. You already know what exactly you are going to sell, but you are not selling on your own consent. You don't have the consent to sell. Someone is actually forcing, someone is forcing you to sell something. Maybe he has a gun, or maybe he is threatening something. If you don't sell this thing to me, I will kill somebody, for example. If you don't sell this one, I will spoil your education, I will spoil your promotion, for example. If you don't do this, I will do that. This is what we call duress. Maybe the contract involving fraud, something that he is selling but he is kind of cheating, right? All these kind of things, these kind of conditions will invalidate the contract. So this is what we call validity of the contract. So remember, there is a connection between number one and number two, right? Okay. Another example they give, selling a car or a house on the condition that purchaser should rent or resell. So this is what I said. The purchaser should rent or resell it to the seller. Buying the house or buying the car on the basis of you have to buy, but you have to sell or you have to rent it to me. For example, a person says, okay, you can buy this property from me for million ringgit, but once you bought it from me, the condition is I should be the one who is going to live in this house on the basis of rental. So actually you cannot do that, because once you sold your property to someone, it is up to him. He can make anyone to be his tenant. He can ask anybody, or he himself also can come and live in that house, because he is becoming the owner of the house. So now you are putting, so now you see everything is there. All three pillars are there, right? House is there, house is subject matter is there, adult, both of them adult, expression is there, but this condition is not valid. Yeah, so now you understand number two. Let me go to number three: conditions for the execution of the contract, which is shurutun nafadh. Yes, now you see, this is what we call execution. Once you know you have, you are qualified to do the contract, that is number one, qualifying to become, to do the contract. Number two is validating the contract. Number three is executing the contract, the next level, which is actually you are almost going to complete the contract, is execution. Yeah, so again there are two conditions under this. Number one, the party to a contract should be an ownership over the subject matter, or guardianship, or agency, agent for minor or prodigal, right? So now the party to a contract. So you see, the party that I am buying from someone, as you can see, the person is already there, which means the party is completed, the subject matter is there, understand? But am I buying this item from the owner, or from someone who steal? Right? Not necessary. When a thief is selling something to you, he is not exactly is the owner of the thing. So now, in order to execute the contract, you must make sure that you are buying something from someone, whether he is the owner of that stuff, that property, that item, or he is authorized person. For example, you go to any 7-Eleven or 99 mart, they are not the person who is selling to you, they are not the owner of the shop, but they are the authorized people. So the owner already gave them the authority, like agency for example, or maybe the guardian. Maybe someone is selling somebody's property, it is a minor's property, but he is selling because he is the guardian of that minor. All right, so this is what, in order to execute the contract, these conditions are compulsory. Even though from outside you look like all three pillars are completed, it doesn't mean that someone can simply make the contract. In order to make the contract, this is kind of game. For example, I tell you one example, maybe you will understand. If there is no such condition, you see what kind of problem will happen. Let's say you are sitting in the classroom, and then one of your friend. Okay, nobody will do that nowadays. I'm just saying. Just for example, if someone, if there is no rule like this, if there is no conditions like this, then you see what will happen. You are sitting down in the classroom, and then you put your phone on the table, and then you are talking to someone. Suddenly someone just took your phone, right? And then went back, and then said, I found a phone, do you want to buy my phone? And then he sold. He said, I sold. Yeah, okay, he sold for 500 ringgit, and then he went and he sit down in his place. Later you found out there is no phone. What happened to my phone? Right? Then you were searching here and there, and then you found that someone, the back door, someone at the behind your desk, someone sitting there, someone is holding your phone. And then you went there and then said, this is my phone. Then he said, how come? I just bought it. Right? He said, I just bought it. And then you say, no, this is my phone. No, no, I just paid. Look, my friends are the witness. These people saw when I was selling, when I was buying this phone. So I already bought this phone. Now, to whom to complain? To whom to blame? Right? So that's the reason why then these conditions are coming. The conditions coming, brother, the one who sold to you my phone, he is not the owner. I am the owner. So take return, go and get the money from him. This phone belongs to me, right? That's how you should, solve the issue here. Otherwise, this is one of the example. I hope you understand. So the ownership is important. Number two, the another condition under this, the property should not involve a third party's right. See that. For example, you are selling something, but someone has a right on it. Let's say my father cannot sell his entire, this is according to Islamic law. All right, even though in Western countries they don't follow this, in in non-Muslim countries they don't follow this, but this is the Muslims in non-Muslim countries maybe not following this, but this is what the real Islamic law. My father cannot sell his entire property to someone without my permission. You got my point. uh, he is allowed to sell only one third of his property. We call solus. Solus means one third, right? You just divide your property into three, and then one third of your property can be given as a waqaf, can be given as a sadaqah, can be given to some madrasa or masjid or some institute of orphanage and all. But the remaining remaining two-third of his property, he cannot sell without the permission of the heirs, before the permission of the children. If all children come and say, okay, we approve you to sell to somebody, then it's okay, otherwise cannot. All right. Similarly, an insolvent person is not allowed to sell his property in a way that would harm the creditors. See, the last example is quite clear. We are talking about insolvent person. Remember, we talked about it. He is what? He is a bankrupt. Remember, we talked about it in the obstacles. The one, even though he is a complete adult, still he cannot do contract because of these reasons. One of them is bankruptcy. So if someone is insolvent, look, the person bankrupt, he is not insane, he is not minor, he is not prodigal, he is completely an adult, right? You will be seeing a bunch of people nowadays, they took loan from the bank, but they become bankrupt, they become insolvent. They were not insane people, they were hardworking people. But you see, the business always comes with profit and loss. Maybe they were not good enough, they were not brilliant enough to use their property, but somehow they used it. They are complete adult. So now from outside, a complete adult can sell anything to anybody, right? But from inside, if you look, if that guy is insolvent, he is not supposed to sell, and you are not supposed to buy from him. Um, you are not supposed to buy from him the property, anything, which means that if you buy that property, that will harm the creditors. That kind of property. Now, I'm not talking about, like small items stuff. I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about, let's say, if that person wants to sell his home, his house, but he is a bankrupt, he is insolvent, meaning to say that the court will decide, right? The court will decide who has to, the court will decide. Okay, I will answer you, Fatima, inshallah. All right, wait. The court will decide whether he can sell his property or not, because his property is worth of money that he's supposed to settle his creditors. So now he cannot sell to somebody and then take the money and enjoy. He has to pay the creditors. So now if you come to know, of course, when you are buying that kind of stuff, maybe you didn't have the information. All right. But after you buy the property from him, and then you came to know that he has the bankruptcy problem, then you are supposed to refuse the contract. You should return the things so that the judge, the court will handle the issue, right? So this is the reason why we talk about all these kind of examples, right? Okay, there is a question. Is it close to the father's death or any point in time? He always has to take permission from his children to sell more than one third of his property. Yes, that's a very good question. What I mean that there is one of the obstacles we discussed, is a mortal illness, right? So now, the when it comes to mortal illness, of course, mortal illness means that the father or the person who has this mortal illness, definitely he or she is going to know that he is going to die. All right, that one is already there. But this is what I'm saying. This one is actually a father, usually the father, but he has adult children. You got my point. He has adult children, not about, because we don't know whether father is close to death or not, isn't it? How do we know father is close to death? Because mashallah, he will be living for 90 years, 100 years, or maybe more than 100, right? So we don't know that. But if the father has adult children, if he has minor children, he doesn't need to ask anything. Is up to him, his own. But when there is adult children, he cannot sell his entire, I'm saying, I'm talking about the entire property, more than one third. If he can do whatever it is, he can do business, he can sell something within the one third, but more than one third, which is two-third, he cannot sell, or he cannot sell means, what I mean by selling is actually if he is converting the property to another property, yeah, it's okay. Understand my point? Because let's say I have a house, I'm selling this house, for I'm replacing my house, I'm selling this and then I'm buying the new house. Then it's a kind of conversion, right? So as long as you are converting your property, and then as long as your property is converting and your property is under the father's name, is okay, there's nothing wrong, he can sell the entire thing. What I mean here, making your property to somebody's name, for example, I'm saying that okay, I want to write off all my property to my brother's name, or maybe all my property to my wife's name, or maybe they have a second wife or third wife. People are doing this. Maybe he's not happy with the first wife's children or first wife, and then he is going and he is writing everything to the second wife, which is actually wrong. That's the reason why I'm saying, as long as the property is under the father's name, whether he buy it or he sell it, doesn't matter. But you cannot make your property to somebody's name, right, without getting anything in replacement. Without getting anything in replacement, then you must ask your children, with the permit. This is the Islamic law. Yeah. Okay, I hope I answer your question. So then, we have the last one today. Okay. All right. The last one, the last conditions that rendered a contract is a binding. Now you see, we talked about the first one is the concluding contract, which means the qualification of contract. That's what I would love to use the word qualifying. All right, the first condition is qualifying, the second condition is validating, the third condition is executing, right? Okay, now once you execute it, it looks like the contract is over, it looks like the contract is complete, but still there is an option. Remember, this option is going to come after two classes, which is called khiyar. All contracts are binding. It is binding means completed unless there are options. The presence of options makes a contract non-binding until the options are exercised or the contracts are approved. Remember, here you are selling and you fulfilled all three contracts, and then so the qualification is okay, the first one is okay, then you don't have any wrong conditions during the validating, you don't have any wrong conditions in the execution, so you're all completing all the conditions. Finally, you are selling a product, but your buyer is asking you, I'm not sure whether this product is good or not, so I'm going to exercise 3 days option, which means that only after 3 days I will be confirming that I bought this from you, because this is what we call trial period. I think you have seen so many nowadays. You can buy any software with a trial period, and then they say 7 days trial, 2 months trial. If you are happy, you continue. If you are not happy, you return back the product. Yeah, the same thing goes to any computers, any TVs and all. As long as you don't have any issues, it's yours. But if there is an issue, then you have to return back. Yeah, so this is what we called options. So now you have all, everything is completed, but you have problem. I mean, everything is completed, but still there is an option. If the buyer says, okay, I will be okay with your contract, but I have to test drive, for example. So you buy a car, you say, I want to test drive. Maybe it's a second hand car, who knows. We don't know about the second hand cars. If it's a brand new, there is no worry, I will buy it. But what if I'm buying a second hand phone? Second hand phone. What if I buy second hand motorcycle, second hand car, second hand TV? So the condition is, okay, I will be using for 3 days. If I'm happy with the product, then I will buy. This is what we called options. These options can be exercised. So now when you buy anything with this option, this contract called non-binding contract. Okay, as long as it is a non-binding, it comes under shurutul luzum, condition that render a contract binding. So this is how actually you can relate yourself with all these four conditions. By the way, so far we talked about only the first main type of the condition. All these four condition comes under what? Under Sharia imposed conditions. So in the next class, inshallah, we will be discussing the parties stipulated conditions. All right. Okay.